Hi, Sean here, one half of Sean and Kiara. We are the co-creators of Lucy in the Sky, a graphic novel for middle grade readers published by First Second. Our second graphic novel, Rhiannon, will be out in October of 2025. If you like the things we do, please consider supporting us by becoming a paying member of our Patreon site for $4 a month. And if you enjoy videos like this, hit the like and subscribe buttons, as it'll help us build this channel. Thank you, and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to another episode of Reading Batman. This is Sean, and today we're going to look at a pretty famous story from issue number 1 of Batman, and this is the very first Joker story. And I remember the first time I read the story, and it was in my copy of Batman from the 30s to the 70s, which I talked about in the very first episode of this series. And in that volume, that featured a lot of the seminal moments of Batman, including his origin story, which also ran in this first issue of Batman. And that particular book was mostly in black and white. There were black and white reprints of the stories, and there were a few color plates, and it was kind of interesting. I remember wondering as a kid, well, why isn't it all in color? I could understand the cover galleries being in color. And then there would be the first page of the Joker story was in color, and then the rest of it was in black and white. So I don't know, it was just a matter of only being able to afford a certain number of colored pages. I remember one of the cover galleries was in black and white, where the rest of them were in color. It was just sort of an odd, to me it seemed like an odd way to make use of the color pages. At any rate, we're going to take a look at a scanned version of Batman number 1 that I found on the Internet Archive. And here we have the famous cover, Robin in his his green cape, which would become yellow. And some interesting color on Batman's costume as well. Is the utility belt is not completely yellow. A little error in the coloring there. It looks like his arm has sort of disappeared into the background. Anyway, let's skip ahead. So we have the origin story of the Batman, which maybe we'll look at some other time. And here we have the first story of the Joker. And I remember this story left a really strong impression on me. And of course I knew who the Joker was before I bought this particular book and read the story, although I hadn't read his very first story. And mostly I knew the Joker probably, aside from other Batman comics, which would have been the 1970s version of the Joker mostly, but also through the TV series, the 1960s Adam West Batman show, and Cesar Romero's portrayal of the Joker in that TV series. And that was pretty much the reference, the two reference points for the Joker that I had at that point. And then when I read this story, this was a very different Joker. So, and of course nowadays we have modern Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker, and the way that he has been reimagined in recent times. Frank Miller's Joker from The Dark Knight Returns, and Grant Morrison's Joker from his run on Batman really returned us to this darker, kind of more ghoulish and sinister, and just sort of more of a disturbing kind of Joker. And in a way, it was really a return to this first story, in which he has a very disturbing. So far as these Batman stories, they were drawn for kids, and this first appearance of him really did have a darkness to it that kind of went away in place of his more clownishness. So we see the splash page, classic splash page, and here we have the first appearance of the Joker card. It's a great splash page. The three cards, the Batman and the Robin card, and the Joker card in the middle. And of course, this would become very iconic, this Joker card. And I believe when Bob Kane and Jerry Robinson, who was an illustrator, an artist who was working with Bob Kane and did a lot of work on the early Batman stories. The story goes that it was Jerry Robinson who contributed a great deal to the development of the Joker and his appearance, and that he drew this Joker card as sort of one of the first things to, give us an idea of what this character was about. There was also, I read that he used a still from the movie The Man Who Laughed as kind of a visual reference for what the Joker should look like. And if you look at that at a photograph from that movie, what is his name? Conrad Veidt, something like that. You can see clearly the influence that the look of the makeup had on how Joker would be drawn. So the story opens, and we see an old couple sitting at home listening to the radio, and the radio broadcast is interrupted. It starts off with kind of with a disturbing start. Suddenly the music is cut off. A toneless voice drones. Tonight at precisely 12 o'clock midnight, I will kill Henry Claridge and steal the Claridge diamond. Do not try to stop me. The Joker has spoken. And the man there goes on to say that it's probably just a hoax, like that Mars, the story about Mars last time, in reference to the War of the Worlds hoax. But even the narration box here, a toneless voice, is our first description of the Joker's voice, and it's not at all what we think of him as this sort of cackling, laughing, kind of manic voice, and here is described as a toneless voice droning. And he announces that he's going to murder somebody on live radio. So right off the bat, we're off to a dark start. And here we see the proposed victim of the Joker's first crime, and he's surrounded by police. He's got a police bodyguard around him already. And so the clock strikes 12, and he's still alive, and he thinks he's safe. And suddenly he begins screaming, and he falls to the floor. And then we see the Joker's grin begin to stretch across his face. It's horrible, grotesque. The Joker brings death to his victims with a smile. So immediately, this method that the Joker used to kill his victims and leaving their faces, the muscles stretch into a ghastly grin. Very disturbing right from the start. And then we find the Joker's calling card, the sign of the Joker. We see here the Joker. Now we cut to his lair or his hideout, and we see that he's it's kind of opulent. It's like he's in a big mansion with the curtains and the tiger rug and surrounded by all his trophies. And even the chair that he's sitting in looks very throne-like. And this first panel of him, where he's not smiling, he's sort of glaring at us, not with his typical grin at all, and being very kind of gaunt, and even the weird anatomy of his forearms. They look sort of like bendy toys rather than having bones in them. This whole panel is just really eerie. And I remember this panel really left me with left quite an impression on me. And then here we get the classic Joker face, the Joker smiling face. And so he announces his second victim, and again the police come in an attempt to protect him. The clock strikes the fatal hour, and all of a sudden he drops to the ground, dying again with his with the grin stretched across his face. And the police themselves find themselves gassed, and here we have the Joker is hidden in the suit of armor and with a gas gun, and he gives them their adieu. I like this panel. It gives it a very theatrical look with the curtains on either side. It's like he's making his stage exit. Thank you all, gentlemen. You have me happy too. We shall meet again, he says. Meanwhile, the underworld, so every once in a while we get a view of where all the criminals in the city hang out, and they're gossiping about the Joker, and one of them, sort of a gangster, decides that he's going to bait the Joker. He's going to try to draw him to his house. Batman and Robin know this, so they're going to be there waiting for him as well. The Joker comes in through the window. Batman appears on the stairs. We have a fight. And as Batman is taking care of the bad guys, the Joker leaves through the window, he escapes from the trap that's been set for him by the other gangsters, and as he does so, he manages to plug the lead gangster who had set the trap for him. Very brutal, very matter-of-fact kind of murdering. Batman chases him out, manages to jump on his car. And here we see, how brutal the Joker can be in this first story. He starts shooting at him, and he's yelling at Batman, "You prepare to die." And even as they jump off the car, they're on the bridge, the car goes over the bridge, and the Joker continues to give Batman a beating. He says, "I'm going to kill you, blast you, fall." He's sort of relentless. Of course, Batman does not die. So now we're on to his next victim, Judge Drake, who Joker has announced he's going to kill at 10 o'clock. And he has with him there the chief of police, supposedly, and they sit down to play cards while they wait. And as they do so, the judge is in for a surprise. The chief of police is actually the Joker himself. And I remember this was another panel that just gave me the chills. The look of the Joker, sort of his face showing through the flesh makeup of his disguise as the chief of police. He says, "You can't win anyway. You see, I hold the winning card." And here again we have the Joker's calling card. And so after killing the judge, he slips out in his disguise. Robin manages to follow him to a deserted house. And going in, the Joker is lying in wait for him and clubs him over the head with his billy club. Batman manages to follow the trail to the house and breaks through just as the Joker is about ready to inject Robin with his deadly venom, his poison. And once again, the Joker manages to escape with his gas gun. final showdown between Batman and the Joker now, and Joker again shoots at him first. He unloads his gun. Batman has a bulletproof vest, and then he ends up throwing the gun at Batman, telling him, "I'll kill you." Again, he's just very ruthless and bloodthirsty. Finally, Batman manages to catch him, knocks him out, puts him behind bars. And this panel here, the last panel of the story, with the Joker behind bars and his face leering through the bars, always kind of reminded me of the Monopoly, the guy in the jail, on the jail space of the Monopoly board. So yeah, really kind of strong first story. Bob Kane's artwork was, pretty primitive and stiff, but very effective in the way that it gave this story that eerie, sort of disturbing edge to it. All right, thank you for joining me.